Jeff, Dayna, great to meet you. Thank you for joining us. And I'll let you tee off, Jeff. Please tell us a little bit about your work with Oracle and at USC, and really why media, entertainment, and technology are pertinent in these times.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Terrence, and great to be with you, Dayna. My name is Jeffrey Thompson, and I'm a vice president at Oracle Corporation and an adjunct professor at USC. You see, I brought some USC paraphernalia behind us, right? Uh, the other big piece that I think that I wanted to make sure you know about is, Oracle is a technology company. I spent 11 years as in the Walt Disney Company organization, including as vice president, global business development. What that means is any kind of media company considers itself a technology company because typically they want all of their content to be across new technology platforms such as mobile, such as 3D, such as the metaverse, or any other technology. So I spend my time at the intersection of technology and content and new management and monetization systems. And the reason why that's relevant for today is because both the media, technology, and communications industries have been, in many cases, out of reach for many people of color, sometimes because of the challenge in technology of navigating those industries. And in the case of media, entertainment, and communications, the exact same. Navigating those industries is hard. It needs a particular skill set. And in addition, people need mentors and roadmaps. So I'll stop there and say thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. We're so honored to have you. Going into this, I just first want to talk about how your experience in being a leader at Disney, how that affected you when you transitioned into doing adjunct teaching at different universities, and then how that helped you moving into your job now at Oracle Technology, how leadership and technology, how those go hand in hand, and how you need one to really be successful in the other.
Yeah, I think for any student, I would always caution them to set big goals. I would also advise them to go into areas where they can be curious. I think that when you look at the Walt Disney Company, there's a little bit of schizophrenia there, right? Most people feel like they know the Disney Company simply because they know the Disney brands, or they know the Disney theme parks, they know Disney movies. However, you'll find that most people don't know that Disney was one of the first media companies to stream, that Disney was one of the first to own a patent on Blu-ray disc. That's a technology that I launched with Disney. And not just that Disney was a content owner, but they owned and had a very influential part of the content and the distribution system. So what I learned is continuous learning is super critical always. Getting into areas where the market is going is another area that is very important that we typically, don't typically think about. Many times we've been, not as involved or invited into particular areas. So by the time we get invited in, those areas have been sort of grown over. And so I always tell my students, and I tell people that I work with, that the fact is you want to be going where the puck is going, not where it's been. So you want to be looking at what are those new monetization systems, what is happening with mobile technology and content, what is happening with the metaverse, where you will see growth and a different way to monetize, meaning make money off of or build a business around different platforms that will be coming. It's almost if I told you, hey, right now in 2022, are you going to invest in an Apple iPhone, or are you going to invest in a website? Well, first you need to do both, but you probably want to go with whichever one is going to grow the fastest and be the most influential around the world and in the United States. Dayna, I'll turn it back to you.
Much. That was all very helpful. Going off of that, I would love to talk about YouTube and your work with YouTube and how that has just completely transcended, especially when it comes to children and the amount of watch time that children's video gets, especially things like Mr. Beast and all the different children's entertainment, and how that's kind of challenged what we knew about media and even television.
Yeah, I find it incredible the changes in it. And if you talk about specifically around, if you talk real holistically around TV, then I'll talk a little bit around YouTube. If you talk about television in general, most of us grew up with a television set. We grew up with a television, and it was like, hey, do you have a TV in your? How many TVs do you have in your house? One in the living room? Do you have one in your bedroom? But meaning, like, our whole ecosystem was around a television, right? How we communicated with our news, with our local news, our national news, with movies and TV shows. And there's about 300 million TV sets in the United States. On average, there's about 100 million homes, and there's about three TVs each home. So you have about 300 million TV sets. And so you were programming for a universe of 300 million people, or 300 million or 100 million households. Quite frankly, what YouTube has done and what they've done in terms of leveraging new types of devices is expand that significantly. So how many cell phones are out there in the United States alone? Almost a billion, around the world. Just you have a significant install base. So you went from having 100 million different households to everyone having a TV in their pocket. And that is what is changing the business of entertainment, because now I am programming to each one of you, each person, rather than I'm programming for a glob of women or a glob of students or a glob of men that love sports. Now I'm programming to Jeffrey Thompson. And what does Jeffrey Thompson like? So the whole ecosystem around personalizing, democratizing matters. What YouTube has done by allowing for content that is not just professional content, but also user-generated content, it's allowed sort of the democratization of content. If you take a look at things like TikTok, if you take a look at things like Reel and other like really new content creation vehicles that are 30-second, a minute long, right? Stories that Snapchat started. It all started with YouTube starting that environment to get people used to like creating their own content and uploading it. The byproduct of that is that it's allowed for literally millions of people to put themselves on their own personal television. It's put themselves in their own areas to not just create content, but also to be seen and heard. And what that's done is it's gone back to the typical broadcasters that have had to expand exponentially. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in the last 10 years, there's been an avalanche of new types of content, diverse content that's shown all around the world. One of my favorite shows is on Netflix that was literally done in France with the lead character as an African-American guy. That would have never been possible or become mainstream 20 years ago, because we were programming to a small universe generally of folks. And now that democratization, meaning significant numbers of content and content offerings, is allowing new people to get into the market. And I'll give you one example. Since I left Disney, I produced 5 television shows. One on ABC Family, which was when I was at Disney, and then I've done 3 documentaries since, including Scrum, which just launched in October of this past year. Scrum tells the story of an African-American, the first African-American coach in the United States to win an NC2A national championship. Now, why is that important? Because I produced it and I own a piece of that content. And more than that, that's the kind of content that we wouldn't have been able to produce and get funded 20 years ago, because it's talking about rugby, not a big sport in the United States, but a big sport globally. It's talking about an African-American lead character. And it's a documentary format. All of these things now are very valuable, and we can tell stories that resonate with folks. But it's all because of what YouTube started years ago, and not that many years ago. I'll turn it back over to you, Dayna.
Um, Jumping off of that, I really want to touch on what you said about TikTok and how TikTok has changed the way for even YouTube and Snapchat, how Snapchat and stories and just short form media has really changed even how we view long form media, how people have to react to, people losing the ability to pay attention after 60 seconds, scenes having to cut super quickly to match up with the fact that we're watching these TikToks that are 1 minute each and only up to 3 minutes, how that's just affected media in general.
Yeah, it's funny because when I talk to students or when I'm talking to professionals in the media sector, I always talk about the importance of always following where people's eyeballs are going. No matter if you look at any good entertainment company or media communications company, they're always studying every aspect of what people are doing in their spare time. Are they watching the news? Are they watching a television show? Are they playing a video game? Are they doing TikToks? Are they creating their own videos? Or are they shopping online on Amazon? So knowing what people do with their habits and the trends that are taking place with people with that is super critical in determining not just what to invest in, but what people are doing and what they're interested in. And so when I look at TikTok is interesting because if you look at the last quarter of 2021, meaning the last year, the last quarter, but last year of 2021, TikTok was the number one growing technology vehicle for video. Number one. And guess who's number two now at the time? Number two for growth is YouTube, meaning Google. Number one now is TikTok, not in full, but in growth. And we always want to look at what's growing, what's trending, because that tells you sort of where people's habits are. TikTok is a phenomenal property in that it spins off a lot of information, it spins off a lot of data, but it also showcases a quick and easy way to entertain, not just to watch others entertain you, but also for you to be involved in that game and entertain. The backside of TikTok is also very important, as it is with all the platforms, and that is that it tells advertisers and other people that want and organizations that want to influence a consumer, it tells them exactly what you as a person are interested in. It tells you your behavior online and these kinds of things that add to business profiling and just in determining influence. And so TikTok is doing that in a big way. And if you look at what Meta, which is the new name for Facebook, they've started copying. They've released Reels, which is really fast growing for Facebook. They've released Reels to compete against TikTok. YouTube is doing a lot more short form video in order to compete against TikTok. So you always want to be finding out where are those eyeballs, where are they going, and where's that advantageous to you. I spent, just before I got on this call, I was on a call with some experts, and we were talking about the metaverse and the importance of, as that ecosystem develops, it's important for young people to know, okay, how do I use this? What do I use it for? How do I monetize it? Meaning, how do I create businesses around it? How do I engage and create content for it? And then, is this really going to be something, or is it a lot of hype? And so you never know. Sometimes these things blow up in big ways, and other times they fail. But when they blow up, they typically blow up big. Metaverse is all about creating virtual worlds and having real estate in those worlds and products in those worlds and sponsorships in those worlds and entertainment and content in those worlds. And if you can imagine, if you look at TikTok or if you look at any other entertainment company, they're interested in the behavior of the consumer. Well, you think Disney with Frozen, Disney with a Star Wars franchise, Disney with a Pixar franchise, you think they want to have a situation where people can go in to their little personal Frozen world and enjoy all the fruits of that? And it's something that technology would not allow, but it is allowing for now. So I say that TikTok is representative of everything about knowing and becoming an expert always in what's next. What are the new technologies? How will they shape us? How will they change us? If you would have told me that everyone in America and everyone in the world would have a flashlight on their phone at all times, that they'd have a banking device, they'd have an encyclopedia in their pocket at one time, that everyone would have a television in their pocket all the time, 24/7, right? That it changes behavior. And boy, anybody that's a futurist says, wait, how do I leverage that? How do I take advantage of that? Making those conveniences and making, leveraging that and making it so people can, one, make a living and get new skill sets in that environment. But also, you always want to go where the wind's at your back, where the growth is. And when you say, if I were to tell you like now, would you go back and invest in iPhone? Would you go back and invest in Netflix if you knew that streaming was going to be the big thing for the next 15 years? Everyone says yes in hindsight. Well, start thinking ahead to what's next from that as they grow. What's the next evolution of growth? And TikTok represents that right now. And I asked you, what's next? Because there's a bunch of what next, and we have to continue to have our eyeballs ready for what's next.
Thank you so much. That just makes me want to go back and touch on leadership again, and how, being a leader and being able to see what comes next and what is making, strides in media and entertainment, things like TikTok and Facebook, taking Instagram, putting reels on Instagram. People definitely go from TikTok to Instagram, just looking at reels over and over again all day. And how that is affecting ads, and how that is affecting people when they're thinking, how do I want to promote this product? Are we going to use a TikTok, or are we going to use an Instagram reel? Are we going to use both? Are we going to make it 1 minute, 2 minutes? I know TikTok has a version for 3 minutes, but Instagram doesn't. And maybe because Instagram knows that short form video, anything under 1 minute, is what's going to promote and do best in terms of advertisement. I know Instagram also is mainly focusing on shopping, not really video content as much, because reels really are making that a core thing.
Yeah, if I, as someone who cares about the advertising ecosystem, I'm very excited where we are. There have never been more choices for different kinds of content to be married up with different kinds of advertising, right? If you look at short form advertising, of things like TikTok and Instagram and Reels, all the way through the traditional Super Bowl commercial, which each 30 seconds costs $7 million. There's a really interesting change taking place, and that is that I can personalize and create content across all of those channels. And so I would encourage. I think if I'm a marketing manager planning a media budget, I'm looking at, okay, if I'm doing reputational advertising, or even if I'm launching a new product, I'm going to be looking. I have to have a great social strategy, right? Because when you have a social strategy, you're really touching people, and you're touching them where they are. Literally, if they're in their car looking at their phone as a passenger in that car, if they're on the train, if they're walking, if they're sitting at a bus bench, no matter where people are, usually they're engaging with their phone. And so if you're just doing television ads, you're missing a whole lot of engagement of consumers and trust building consumers. And I think that's where the digital piece has changed. We used to say, like, okay, how many hours are people watching TV a day? Oh, they're watching TV 3 hours a day. Oh, that's a lot of television for advertising. Well, think how much people are engaged on their phones every day. Literally, it's 7 or 8 hours a day. It's triple television, right? And they were telling us we were watching too much TV for the last 20 years, right? So now you have this engagement vehicle where you're influencing, and advertisers have the ability to touch someone across Facebook, across Instagram, across Reels, across Snapchat, across all kinds of platforms, right? Even platforms like Waze, where if I'm driving down the street, a Burger King or a McDonald's ad could show up because it knows I'm right in the vicinity of one of those restaurants. And so if I'm an advertiser, I'm looking for, how do I use these different channels to develop trust, to develop a product positioning, and to drive active engagement. And active engagement, for those that don't know, is, if you have a television ad, you always want the ability to have a call to action, right? How do I get someone to not just see a Super Bowl commercial, but, oh, I want to actually go out and buy that Nissan, right? Or I want to go out and buy that dress, or that whatever's being advertised. Well, quite frankly, if I'm advertising online, you're one click away from making that transaction. I'm on Instagram, I can make that transaction, which, they have a Shopify deal, and a big commerce deal where I can click a button and buy that, whatever it is, immediately right there. The call to action is push the button and buy. And so that is a significant change as to compared to how television and radio advertising, which was all about entertainment, promotion, sports, but the call to action, you couldn't just make the purchase by watching television. You had to go into a store, you had to call a 1-800 number, you had to do something else. Now with digital, I'm able to make that transaction immediately. And advertisers love this, and they love the exploration that it makes. And I'll tell you, it's opened up the opportunity for a lot of additional people to be in this business. Because let me tell you, when you start looking at people of color in the United States and even around the world, we set the tone in many cases for trending in fashion and what's next. And having a very good ability to study that behavior and leverage that behavior and target that behavior really aggressively and upfront is really important, and is really optimal for the industry. Hope this has been a helpful answer to you, because you hit one of the areas that I'm very excited about, and that's the change in advertising.
Yes, me too. I really wonder how, as you're talking about bringing in new people and creating new jobs for people, especially people of color, how being a teacher has helped you in those spaces, how you've been able to teach, this grand world of marketing across all forms of media, helping people understand that, it doesn't stop at Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. You have to use Pinterest. You have to use Waze. You have to think about how people are going on to these shopping websites. What things do they want to see when they're shopping on Shein or any of these places? And especially how that ranges when it comes to the different demographics that you're reaching.
No, absolutely. It's such a significant change. And let me just tell you, I'm a big believer that, steel sharpens steel. So you have to have strong things and be around strong people to continue to sharpen yourself and sharpen your skill set, and be thoughtful about what the future looks like and what your future looks like in particular. The one thing I love about teaching, and the same steel sharpens steel, is that I'm teaching in areas. I teach digital strategy, I teach research in a digital component space, I teach digital technologies, and I teach digital marketing. So I teach sort of in that digital ecosystem. Now, why is that important? It's important because the things that I'm teaching, I'm not teaching English or other really wonderful subjects that we have to know. I'm teaching subjects that are changing, and they're changing year after year. So it's not that you're just teaching and learning. You're learning underlying concepts, but you're also learning what will be those future technologies that will change our world, right? That will transform our ability, including how we're doing this interview. This interview 20 years ago would have been a horrible experience. And now we're talking as if we're in the same building. We're having a good conversation. The edits will be fantastic. And it's all brought about by new technology that somebody invested in. And so, I would say that as I look forward, the thing I love about teaching in the areas that I teach is that I'm able to talk with real users of digital, real users, millennials who are pioneering and are digital natives, and watching their behavior. That's what's going to continue to drive us forward. Forward, excuse me. When I look at, even how advertisers target, they like to target 18 to 34-year-olds because those people like branding, and they're impressionable. You can spend dollars advertising to that group, and they'll actually choose your brand, right? If you talk to the average 70-year-old and you advertise towards them, they kind of pick their brands and are in their brands forever, right? You're not going to influence them quite as much, but you can take a younger demographic and really influence them. Well, when I'm teaching, and I'm teaching young college students or master's degree students, and those are the people that will be leading change. And so steel sharpens steel. The best ideas,